Hey class, welcome back. We are so close to finishing and I'm super excited to be back with you guys with another video and I hope that you guys are doing well. Hope that you guys are staying positive, staying encouraged and no, not Caleb. But I hope that you guys are staying positive throughout this whole thing and really trying to encourage others as well. And please reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns, issues, and I'll help you as best I can. But I do want to start off today, 530, page 530. We're going to be finishing the chapter today, which means we're going to review on Monday, and then our very last class will be on Wednesday. We will take the chapter 23 test. There is no final exam. It'll just be the chapter 23 test, just like all the other tests have been on Edmodo. So nothing different about that. That's just how we're going to end our school year. We'll have class Monday, Wednesday of next week. Very last day of school is Thursday, a week from today. Can you believe that? It's crazy. Anyway, so we're gonna finish the chapter. We're gonna do the last two sections of 23. I'm really sad that we don't get into chapter 24. I highly encourage you to read through it. I mean, it's history. Why wouldn't you want to? But I hope that you'll be able to do that. I hope that you've enjoyed the first part of this chapter, the showdown between these two great powers, and we've seen the two powers flex their muscles, if you will. We've seen the takeover of Cuba. We've seen the communist rise, especially after World War II, and we have this face-off. The Cold War is essentially a face-off. We never have this physical war. It's more this ideological war. So now we see this war come to an end in the remaining pages. So 530 is where we'll begin. And the first guy I want you to know is Khrushchev, Nikita Khrushchev. We've already talked about naming your kids, so this one is, I think, like number 14. You guys are having a lot of kids. Anyway, so I think this is number 14. I think this is more like a pet name, you know, like you would name your cat Nikita. No offense to Khrushchev, but I don't know. That's an interesting first name. But Nikita Khrushchev is really the last of the great Soviet leaders because he's going to be kind of the beginning of the downfall. But um, really, you have Lenin, Stalin, and Khrushchev are going to be the main guys, the main leaders of the Soviet Union. So after that, they really didn't have their strength, and we start to see this decline after Khrushchev. Well, whenever Stalin passes off the scene, Khrushchev comes to power, and he's still ruthless. He's still communist mindset. But what's different between him and Stalin is he has this mindset of peaceful coexistence. So he's going to talk with the biggest power of the free world, which is the United States, America. President Eisenhower was in office, and he and Eisenhower kind of go back and forth, and pretty mutual. But what they agree on is we will try to live peaceably um, as much as possible. We know that we'll never agree, but Khrushchev is saying, listen, you believe this, we believe this. We're not going to change each other's minds. So let's just live with our two beliefs, you know, this coexistence. Let's exist together with these different mindsets, peaceably, of course. Well, that doesn't really happen, especially whenever the Russians launch their Sputnik. I have a picture of Sputnik. It's also on 531. Looks like a thing from Star Wars. I don't know the Star Wars terminology. Forgive me, I'm sorry. But it looks like I don't know, it looks like a slingshot almost. Anyway, so this was a spacecraft. It's going to be the first man-made satellite in space, and this gets the United States scared. Why would the United States be scared about a satellite? Well, one, think of the time, 1957. We've never seen a satellite before, so the fact that they could launch it into space is like, wow, they're smart. Like these people know what they're doing because it hasn't been done before. So now America is not only worried because the Russians have done this feat, is launch a satellite. But now, how can the Russians use that against us? So that's the mindset of it. So now America gets to work, says, listen, we have to push science hard. So now there's this whole new push for education, specifically in science, and then we get our space program working. But we're going to have this space race. Who can be the best um, in space? So America is going to respond. We're going to have our space program. Now, um, here we get a little taste of our own medicine because we're not very trusting of the Soviets at all, which you may imagine. And the United States was trying to get as much intel as possible, especially on the space race, because if they're able to do this, what else are they able to do, especially with nuclear weapons or chemical warfare, things like this. So of course we want to have eyes on Russia. Well, Russia doesn't appreciate us staring at them. I mean, you go out in public and someone's staring at you, I don't know if you really appreciate it. But especially if you have something to hide or if it's your enemy staring at you, right? That's just super uncomfortable. But what Russia, excuse me, at this time it's Soviet Union, they're going to shoot down the U-2 spy plane. You can see the plane on 531, a similarity to it. And because of the name, the U-2 spy plane, this is where we get the U-2 incident. Um, you can imagine how this is going to affect the Cold War. Tensions are going to get high. We don't appreciate when the Americans lose their lives, especially whenever our vowed enemy did it. So it's going to be very intense, but we're able to move past it. We're able to talk past it. The Russians are saying the Russians don't mess around. The Soviets don't mess around. They say, listen, if you are going to spend your or send your planes over, we're not going to shoot down. We're not only going to shoot down the plane, but we're also going to blow up the base that the plane came from. Talk about intense. We're going to hear that same intensity from another president later on, but um, Khrushchev is not going to mess around. So another big issue at the time was Berlin. Now, Berlin was split up after World War II when the Russians came in and then the Allies came in from Europe, the Russians from the east, Europe, or the Allies from the west. And they split Germany right down the middle. But the problem was Berlin was in the east where the Russians were. So then we say, okay, that's not fair for Russia to have the whole capital, so let's split the capital as well. Well, Russia's going to get half of the capital, Berlin, and then the Allies are going to have to split. The Allies, the three countries, England, France, and the United States, are going to have to split half, so they get a third of half. So Russia comes out great on this end of the deal, but they always want more. The fact that embarrassed them the most was most Germans wanted to live in West Berlin. So we've seen fences all throughout history, right? We've seen walls. We hear Trump build a wall, but why do you build a wall? To keep people out is the main purpose of a wall. Like think of a fence around Westwood. It's not to keep you guys in. Well, kind of, yeah, because it's a prison. No, I'm just kidding. It's not just to keep you guys in. In fact, that's not even the main purpose. Really, it's to keep people out, to keep our property separate. So that's the whole purpose of a fence. Um, but the Berlin Wall, was to keep people in. Like that was the main purpose, right? And I joked around about Westwood. I don't want you to take that serious, okay? But um, that's not the main purpose. But here, the Berlin Wall was specifically and really only built to keep people in. But we can see that it's effective, yes, but you can see how desperate people are for freedom. Talking about Cuba earlier, how many people flee Cuba? I'm sure you know either in your own family or family friends that have escaped Cuba. And that shows you how bad communism is, that people are willing to risk their lives to go to freedom. And that's exactly what people are viewing Berlin as. Is people are running away from East Berlin. Like they were losing people, thousands of people in just weeks. So thousands upon thousands are leaving. So this looks very bad for communism. So Of course, they build a wall. Literally overnight, they build a wall. And in fact, they guard this wall and say, shoot to kill anyone that tries to cross. And there will be several hundreds that try to cross. Um, in fact, on page 535, we're going to get there, but you can see a picture of all the people that tried to cross. They have that memorial there. Well, it goes up and it shows how intense communism is, especially to keep their people in. The most intense, the climax of the Cold War comes with the Cuban Missile Crisis. So the Soviets were sending these missiles, nuclear missiles, to Cuba. After all, now they have Cuba as their colony, so they can store all these weapons in Cuba, and after all, they're just 90 miles from the Keys. So they can reach any place in America. Now, the Soviets see the advantage of this and they send their weapons down. Americans get wind of it, specifically the president is Kennedy, and he says, no, this is not cool, one. Okay, but he says, no, we can't have this at all. And so Kennedy says, stop, but he doesn't just say it. He sets up a blockade of the Navy to block the Russians from coming to Cuba with these missiles. So we have this face-off, if you will, right? The Russians are coming in, and Americans are saying, no, you're not bringing those here. That's way too close. That's way too aggressive. We're not gonna accept that. So now it's who's gonna back away first, or who's gonna fire first. So it's like this awkward kind of standing there, and then Khrushchev decides to back away. Now, Kennedy promises, listen, we'll never try and invade Cuba. Um, but he does stand up to Khrushchev, and Khrushchev will back down. And this will avoid a full-scale war. It was so close to World War III. Do you think the killing of the Iraqi general, like back earlier this year, was World War III? Do you remember all the memes that came out, all the jokes that came out? Imagine how people are feeling whenever they're reading the news about the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's going to be something very similar where they're thinking, oh, we're going to get drafted. It's going to be World War III. This is insane. So you can imagine how they were feeling. Here's a picture of Sputnik. Pretty interesting. I'm not sure I would. Well, obviously you're not going to be in it. It's a satellite, but still, I don't know if I would want to see that. Anyway, talking about the Berlin Wall, you can actually find some people today that have pieces of the Berlin Wall. Notice the famous the gate in the background. This is what will separate East and West Berlin, if you will, the Brandenburg Gate. And the concrete wall was guarded. You can see the no pass zone, and the guards were told to shoot to kill of anyone trying to cross. Now, this you don't necessarily see barbed wire, but throughout the wall there will be barbed wire and trying to keep people in as much as possible. But people will do whatever they can to escape. So Nixon comes to power. He becomes president, and he is a Republican, but he's very liberal-minded as far as Republicans are concerned. And one is he's going to visit China, and this is going to be one of his ways to promote this détente, as his Secretary of State Kissinger is going to promote. So he's going to try and promote this um, relaxation, if you will, this easing of the tensions. One way is he's going to recognize China as a legitimate government, the Communist government of China. By him going to China literally means that the United States acknowledges the communist regime in China. Before, no U.S. president acknowledged their existence. Well, Nixon's going to travel there. In fact, you can see. Actually, let me go back. You can see on page 500. Oh, where I missed the picture. I'm not sure where the picture went. But anyway, Nixon was, I believe it was in, maybe it's coming up in the slides, I forget. But Nixon was China, and he's going to pass off the scene with the Watergate scandal. Then we're going to get Ford. But really, the next great president that comes to power that stands up against the Soviets is going to be Ronald Reagan. And he's going to